Think back to the last time a sudden, overwhelming wave of absolute motivation hit you completely out of nowhere. Perhaps it was late on a Sunday evening, while the rest of the house was entirely quiet and still. Staring at the ceiling, a powerful vision of a completely transformed version of yourself suddenly crystallized in your mind. Tomorrow was going to be the definitive turning point of your entire existence. Setting your alarm for an hour earlier than usual felt like signing a sacred contract with your own future. Writing down a massive list of strict rules, demanding workouts and clean meals filled your chest with electric anticipation. Monday actually arrives, and miraculously, you execute the plan with terrifying, almost robotic precision. Waking up early feels incredible, the workout is challenging but rewarding, and your diet is absolutely flawless. Going to sleep that first night, a beautiful sense of pride washes over your tired muscles. Tuesday rolls around, and while the initial magical glow has slightly faded, sheer willpower easily carries you through the daily checklist. You push past the minor friction, ignoring the subtle aches in your body and the quiet cravings in your mind. Then, the dreaded sun rises on Wednesday morning. Something deep inside your psychological architecture has suddenly, violently shifted overnight. When that early alarm goes off, the soaring enthusiasm from Sunday night is completely missing from your brain. Instead, a heavy, suffocating blanket of deep exhaustion pins your shoulders firmly to the mattress. Every single cell in your biological system loudly begs you to stay under the warm covers for just 10 more minutes. That massive, ambitious list of daily goals suddenly looks like an impossible, terrifying mountain to climb. Rationalizations begin whispering softly in the dark corners of your groggy consciousness. Skipping just one workout will not completely ruin the entire week, your mind cleverly suggests. Eating one comfortable, familiar meal is actually necessary for your mental health, the inner voice convincingly argues. Giving in to that comforting logic provides an immediate, rushing wave of relief to your stressed nervous system. By Thursday afternoon, the entire grand plan has quietly crumbled into invisible dust. Does this exact 3-day timeline feel uncomfortably familiar to your own personal history? Are you intimately acquainted with the painful, repeating cycle of starting a new life with explosive energy, only to abandon it 72 hours later? Millions of highly intelligent, deeply capable individuals secretly live inside this exact same invisible trap. Society aggressively conditions us to view this specific pattern as a profound moral failure or a tragic lack of character. Whenever we abandon our ambitious goals so quickly, we immediately slap the cruel label of laziness onto our own foreheads. Looking around at people who casually maintain long-term discipline only deepens the heavy, silent shame we carry. We quietly convince ourselves that we are fundamentally broken, entirely missing the mythical gene for willpower that everyone else possesses. What if everything you currently believe about your inability to follow through is scientifically and fundamentally incorrect? Consider the profoundly liberating reality that your sudden loss of motivation is not a sign of personal weakness. It is actually a highly sophisticated, brilliantly evolved biological defense mechanism executing exactly as it was designed. Understanding why your motivation mysteriously evaporates on the third day requires taking a fascinating journey deep into your own biology. Hidden securely inside the base of your skull is an ancient, incredibly powerful survival system dedicated entirely to a concept called biological homeostasis. Explaining homeostasis in simple terms fundamentally changes how you view your own frustrating behavioral patterns. Your physical body and your neurological system possess a desperate, hardwired love for absolute balance and total predictability. Over the years, your brain has carefully optimized its energy expenditure around your current, specific daily habits. Even if those daily habits are entirely unhealthy, sitting on the couch and eating junk food is mathematically predictable to your nervous system. Predictability equals safety in the deeply primitive, ancient parts of your operating system. Whenever you suddenly decide to change everything about your life on a Sunday night, you declare a biological war. Drastically cutting your calories, adding intense physical stress, and altering your sleep schedule is not viewed by your brain as self-improvement. Your central nervous system actually perceives this massive, sudden shift as a literal, immediate threat to your physical survival. During the first 48 hours, you managed to push through this internal alarm system using a powerful chemical called dopamine. Creating that ambitious plan triggered a massive, intoxicating flood of reward chemicals, providing a temporary shield against the physical friction. Monday and Tuesday are heavily funded by this emotional high, allowing you to manually override the brain's desperate plea for comfort. However, emotional energy is an incredibly volatile and strictly limited biological resource. By the time Wednesday morning arrives, the initial massive spike of planning dopamine has completely crashed to the floor. Meanwhile, the physical cost of your new extreme lifestyle has been quietly accumulating in the background. Muscles are carrying micro tears from the sudden exercise, and blood sugar levels are fluctuating wildly from the new diet. Sleep architecture is slightly disrupted from the forced early wake-up call, creating a microscopic but real sleep debt. Sensing this rapid depletion of precious energy reserves, your brain forcefully pulls the emergency psychological brake. Homeostasis aggressively kicks in, fighting desperately to return your body to its previous familiar state of low-energy predictability. Cravings for high-calorie foods skyrocket, while the mere thought of exerting physical effort triggers a wave of manufactured exhaustion. Your brain literally manipulates your conscious thoughts, feeding you brilliant, logical excuses to simply stop trying so hard. Quitting on the third day is not a failure of your character. It is a successful victory for your ancient survival hardware. The human mind is brilliantly engineered to survive a harsh winter by conserving energy, not to suddenly become a high-performance athlete overnight. Knowing this biological reality completely exposes the massive, toxic lie perpetuated by the modern self-help industry. Gurus loudly scream from brightly lit stages that you simply need to take massive, terrifying action to change your life. They aggressively sell the cinematic fantasy of the overnight transformation, completely ignoring the hard boundaries of human neurology. Buying into the, quote, zero mentality guarantees that you will eventually end up with absolutely nothing. Every single time you attempt a massive overhaul and inevitably fail on day 3, terrible psychological damage occurs. Trust in your own internal promises slowly erodes, leaving a deep, lingering sense of learned helplessness. You begin to unconsciously associate the beautiful concept of self-improvement with the bitter, familiar taste of inevitable failure. Escaping this incredibly sticky, painful loop requires a total, ruthless demolition of how you currently approach personal change. You must learn how to intelligently bypass the brain's sensitive alarm system instead of trying to violently smash right through it. Flying completely under the neurological radar is the ultimate secret of people who actually achieve permanent transformation. Instead of declaring a loud, dramatic war on your old habits, you must become a quiet, invisible saboteur. If your ultimate goal is to exercise every single day, attempting an hour-long boot camp on Monday morning is a biological mistake. Your brain will immediately detect that massive energy expenditure and violently shut the operation down by Wednesday. What if, instead, you simply put on your running shoes and walked outside for exactly 5 minutes, and then immediately stopped? 5 minutes of walking is so completely unthreatening that the homeostasis alarm system does not even bother to turn on. No emergency brakes are pulled, no massive cravings are generated, and no crushing exhaustion is manufactured the next day. Repeating that tiny, seemingly insignificant action for an entire week quietly builds a completely new neural pathway. Your brain slowly begins to accept this minor energy expenditure as a normal, safe part of the daily baseline. Weeks later, when you gently increase the time to 10 minutes, the system remains perfectly calm and compliant. This deeply unglamorous, frustratingly slow method is completely ignored by popular culture because it lacks cinematic drama. Nobody makes highly emotional, viral montage videos about a person stretching for 3 minutes on their living room rug. Yet those tiny, invisible daily victories are exactly how permanent steel cables of discipline are actually forged. We absolutely hate the idea of starting small because our egos are deeply addicted to the grand, sweeping gesture. Telling people you are on a brutal, restrictive diet feels incredibly impressive and generates immediate social validation. Admitting you are simply trying to drink 1 extra glass of water today feels embarrassing and entirely unremarkable. Releasing your desperate grip on the dramatic overnight transformation is profoundly, unexpectedly liberating. It completely removes the crushing, heavy pressure that has been silently suffocating your potential for years. You are no longer required to be a flawless, highly optimized machine operating at maximum capacity from the very first minute. Embracing the messy, highly imperfect, and incredibly slow reality of true human growth allows actual healing to begin. Stop violently demanding that your fragile nervous system adapt to a completely new universe in 72 hours. Start deeply respecting the immense, quiet courage required to simply maintain a microscopic change for an entire month. When Wednesday morning inevitably arrives on your next attempt, expect the heavy wave of resistance to show up at your door. Acknowledge the physical fatigue and the clever excuses your brain generates, without judging yourself harshly for feeling them. Recognize that the voice begging you to stay in bed is just an ancient biological program trying to keep you safe from starvation. Smile kindly at that primitive fear, and then perform the absolute bare minimum required to keep the physical habit alive. Doing a single push-up on the living room floor when you desperately want to quit is a massive, monumental psychological victory. It mathematically proves to your nervous system that the habit survives even when the highly volatile emotion of motivation completely disappears. Bridging the terrifying gap between day 3 and day 4 is where your entirely new identity is slowly born in the dark. Every single time you survive the third day by scaling back the intensity instead of quitting completely, you rewrite your internal narrative. You slowly transition from a person who beautifully plans major changes to a person who quietly endures small discomforts. Look closely at the graveyard of abandoned planners, unused gym memberships, and heavily highlighted books scattered throughout your past. Notice how every single one of those failures began with a massive, unsustainable explosion of highly emotional energy. You have proven countless times that you possess the magnificent strength required to start a very difficult journey. Starting has never been your actual problem, nor is a lack of deep, genuine desire for a better existence. Your brilliant, highly protective mind simply needs you to stop treating self-improvement like an aggressive biological emergency. Permanent transformation is never found in the loud, dramatic promises whispered into the darkness on a highly motivated Sunday night. It is permanently hiding in the boring, profoundly unglamorous moments of a tired Wednesday morning when nobody is watching you. Are you finally willing to surrender the addictive, emotional thrill of starting over so you can safely endure the quiet, boring reality of